1996. D. Washington Quarter Dollar Coin. The Washington Quarter is one of the most recognizable coins in United States history, and by the time 1996 arrived, the design had already been circulating for more than 6 decades. The coin first debuted in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. What began as a one-year commemorative issue quickly transformed into a permanent design that replaced the standing Liberty Quarter. By 1996, Americans had been using the Washington Quarter for generations, making it a familiar and trusted part of daily commerce. The 1996 D. Washington Quarter was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the primary coin-producing facilities in the United States. The small D mint mark appears on the obverse of the coin, positioned just to the right of George Washington's ponytail ribbon. While this mint mark may appear subtle, it plays a crucial role in determining a coin's origin and, sometimes, its value. The obverse of the coin features the enduring portrait of George Washington, created by sculptor John Flanagan. This design is based on a bust of Washington originally sculpted by French artist Jean-Antoine Houdon in the late 18th century. Washington's profile faces left, with the word Liberty arching across the top rim of the coin. Below the portrait appears the date, 1996, and the phrase "I in God we trust" is positioned to the left of Washington's neck. Although the design remained largely unchanged for decades, collectors pay close attention to small details within the portrait. The sharpness of Washington's hair curls, the clarity of the lettering, and the strength of the strike all influence the coin's condition and value. Coins struck with exceptional detail are particularly attractive to collectors who pursue high-grade examples. The reverse of the 1996 D. Washington Quarter carries another classic design by John Flanagan. At the center stands a powerful heraldic eagle with wings spread wide. The eagle clutches a bundle of arrows in its talons, symbolizing strength and readiness to defend the nation. Beneath the eagle rests a pair of olive branches, representing peace. Above the eagle is the inscription United States of America, while the denomination quarter dollar curves along the bottom rim. Between these inscriptions appears the national motto, E Pluribus Unum. This reverse design had been in use since the beginning of the Washington Quarter series and remained unchanged until 1998, just before the introduction of the state quarters program in 1999. Because of that timing, the 1996 issues are part of the final stretch of the classic Washington Quarter design before the major transformation that would redefine the series for modern collectors. In terms of production numbers, the Denver Mint struck approximately 906,868,000 Washington Quarters in 1996. This extremely high mintage reflects the heavy demand for circulating coinage during the mid-1990s. With nearly 1 billion coins produced, the vast majority of 1996 D quarters entered circulation immediately and were used in everyday transactions. Because of that enormous mintage, most circulated examples of the 1996 D quarter remain worth only their face value of 25 cents. However, the story becomes far more interesting when collectors begin examining coins in higher grades. In the world of coin collecting, condition is everything. A coin that spent decades in circulation will show wear on Washington's hair, flattening on the eagle's feathers, and small scratches from contact with other coins. But occasionally, a coin escapes circulation entirely. These coins, known as mint state examples, retain their original luster and sharp details. For the 1996 D quarter, coins graded MS-65 or higher can command notable premiums among collectors. At the MS-65 level, the coin typically sells for a modest amount, often between $5 and $15 depending on market demand. But as the grade increases, prices rise dramatically. An MS-67 example of the 1996 D quarter can bring several $100s at auction. The reason lies in the difficulty of finding coins with such exceptional preservation. Even though hundreds of millions were struck, very few survived without bag marks, scratches, or dull luster. At the very top of the grading scale, coins graded MS-68 are extremely rare. In some auction records, such examples have sold for well over $1,000. These coins represent the absolute finest survivors of the mintage, and collectors competing to assemble high-grade registry sets often drive the prices upward. Beyond condition, another factor that can significantly increase the value of a 1996 D Washington Quarter is the presence of mint errors. Coin errors occur when something unusual happens during the minting process, resulting in coins that deviate from the standard design. One notable error associated with Washington quarters is the off-center strike. In this error, the coin blank is not properly aligned during striking, causing part of the design to be missing. Off-center 1996. D quarters have been discovered with varying degrees of misalignment. Depending on how dramatic the error appears and whether the date remains visible, these coins can sell for anywhere from $50 to several $100s. Another fascinating error type involves double strikes. This occurs when a coin receives more than one strike from the dies without being properly ejected from the press. The resulting coin may display overlapping images or distorted designs. While such errors are rare for the 1996 D quarter, examples that appear in the market can attract significant collector interest. Die cracks and die chips are also common varieties collectors watch for. Over time, the intense pressure used to strike coins causes the dies themselves to wear or crack. When that happens, raised lines or blobs may appear on the coins produced afterward. These features can create minor varieties that collectors enjoy cataloging. A particularly appealing category for collectors is the die break, sometimes called a cud. In these cases, a piece of the die breaks away entirely, leaving a raised, unstruck area on the coin. Such dramatic errors can transform an ordinary quarter into a sought-after collectible. Another aspect that influences collector interest in the 1996 D Washington quarter is its place within the broader timeline of the series. The mid-1990s represent the closing chapter of the original Washington quarter design. Just a few years later, in 1999, the United States Mint would introduce the State Quarters program, completely changing the reverse design and sparking one of the largest coin collecting movements in modern history. Because of that historical transition, many collectors view the 1996 issues as part of the final traditional run of Washington quarters. This gives the coin subtle historical significance, especially for collectors building complete date and mint mark sets that span the entire series. Another interesting factor involves original mint sets. The United States Mint produced official 1996 mint sets containing uncirculated examples of coins from both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. Some collectors seek out these sets to find pristine examples of the 1996 D quarter with strong luster and minimal contact marks. When removed carefully from original packaging and submitted to grading services, these coins occasionally achieve the highest grades known for the issue. That possibility keeps collectors searching through old mint sets even decades later. Market trends also play a role in determining the value of the 1996 D Washington quarter. As more collectors participate in registry set competitions through major grading services, demand for top-graded examples continues to increase. When only a handful of coins exist at the highest grade, competition among collectors can push auction prices dramatically higher. While the average 1996 D quarter may still circulate unnoticed in pocket change, the finest examples tell a very different story. These coins represent the intersection of mass production and numismatic rarity, a reminder that even the most common coins can hold hidden value when preserved in exceptional condition. 1965 Washington quarter dollar coin. The year 1965 marked one of the most important turning points in the history of American coinage. For decades, U.S. quarters had been struck using 90% silver, giving them intrinsic metal value along with their face value. But by the early 1960s, the price of silver began rising rapidly. As the metal became more valuable, people started hoarding coins, melting them down, and removing them from circulation. The United States suddenly faced a nationwide coin shortage. To solve the crisis, Congress passed the Coinage Act of 1965. This law completely changed the composition of American coins. For the first time in history, quarters would no longer contain silver. Instead, the new Washington quarter would be produced using a copper-nickel clad composition, an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. The new structure preserved the familiar color and durability of the coin while eliminating the expensive silver content. The 1965 Washington quarter therefore represents the very beginning of the modern clad coin era in the United States. Despite this massive change in composition, the design of the quarter remained largely the same. The obverse features the familiar portrait of George Washington, originally designed by sculptor John Flanagan. Washington faces left with a dignified expression, his hair tied in a colonial queue behind his head. Above his portrait appears the word Liberty, arching across the upper rim of the coin. Just below the motto sits "In God We Trust," placed to the left of Washington's neck. The date 1965 appears prominently at the bottom of the obverse. The reverse of the coin is equally iconic. At the center stands a powerful bald eagle with wings spread wide, perched atop a bundle of arrows symbolizing military strength. Beneath the arrows lies a pair of olive branches, representing peace. Above the eagle's head, the inscription "United States of America" forms a graceful arc along the rim, while the phrase "E pluribus unum" floats just above the eagle. At the bottom of the reverse, the denomination $quarter is proudly displayed. Although the design was familiar, the coins themselves were dramatically different inside. The new copper-nickel structure gave the quarter a sandwich-like appearance when viewed from the edge, revealing a thin reddish copper core between the outer layers. Another major change occurred in 1965 that would affect collectors forever. To discourage hoarding, the U.S. Mint temporarily removed mint marks from all coins. Traditionally, mint marks identified where a coin had been produced, such as Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. But between 1965 and 1967, mint marks were intentionally omitted so that collectors would not seek out coins from particular facilities. As a result, every 1965 Washington quarter appears without a mint mark, even though millions were produced at several different mints. Production numbers were enormous. In fact, the Philadelphia Mint alone struck over 1.8 billion quarters dated 1965. Additional quantities were also produced at other facilities, but without mint marks it is impossible to tell them apart. This huge mintage was part of the government's effort to flood the economy with coins and end the shortage. Because of such high production numbers, most 1965 quarters are extremely common today. Circulated examples often sell for only face value, though nicer uncirculated pieces may bring a few dollars. However, certain varieties and minting errors have made some 1965 quarters surprisingly valuable. One of the most famous errors associated with the 1965 Washington quarter involves coins accidentally struck on leftover silver planchets from 1964. During the transition to clad coinage, a small number of 90% silver blanks apparently remained in mint equipment. When these blanks were struck with 1965 dies, they produced coins that looked identical to normal quarters but contained silver rather than copper-nickel. These rare transitional errors are among the most sought-after Washington quarters ever discovered. Collectors can identify them by weight and edge appearance. A normal clad quarter weighs about 5.67 grams and shows a copper stripe along the edge. But a silver transitional error weighs around 6.25 grams and has a solid silver-colored edge. When authenticated, these coins can command astonishing prices at auction. Some examples have sold for several $1,000s. And in exceptional condition, they may exceed $10,000. Another interesting category involves double die errors. These occur when the coin die receives a slightly misaligned impression during the manufacturing process, causing parts of the design to appear doubled on struck coins. On certain 1965 quarters, collectors have observed doubling in the lettering, particularly in Liberty and "In God We Trust." While not as rare as the silver transitional pieces, strong double die examples can still attract serious collector interest and sell for hundreds of dollars depending on condition. Strike quality is another factor that affects the value of 1965 quarters. Because the mint was rushing to produce massive quantities of coins during the shortage, many pieces were struck quickly and sometimes poorly. Coins with sharp details, fully defined eagle feathers, and strong luster are much more desirable. High-grade uncirculated examples graded MS-67 or higher by professional grading services can sell for several $100s or more. These pristine coins represent the finest survivors from a year when quality was often sacrificed for speed. For collectors, the 1965 Washington quarter represents more than just a coin. It marks the dramatic transition from precious metal coinage to the modern clad era. It reflects economic pressures, government policy, and the urgent need to keep everyday commerce moving. And within that seemingly ordinary coin lies the possibility of hidden treasure, whether a rare silver error, a double die variety, or an exceptionally preserved specimen that has survived decades untouched. The 1996 P. Washington quarter dollar coin. The 1996 P. Washington quarter represents the companion issue to the Denver minted coin, and it was produced at the historic Philadelphia Mint, the oldest minting facility in the United States. Philadelphia has played a central role in American coinage since 1792, and by the 1990s it remained one of the nation's most important coin production centers. Unlike earlier decades when Philadelphia coins carried no mint mark, by 1996 the Mint had adopted the use of the P mint mark. On the Washington quarter, this small letter appears on the obverse of the coin, positioned just to the right of Washington's ponytail ribbon. Though tiny, this mark allows collectors to distinguish the coin's origin instantly. The design of the 1996 P. Washington quarter follows the same classic layout seen across the entire series. On the obverse, John Flanagan portrait of George Washington remains the centerpiece. Washington's dignified profile faces left, embodying the image of leadership and stability that the United States sought to portray when the design first appeared in 1932. Above the portrait, the word Liberty stretches along the upper rim of the coin. The date 1996 appears at the bottom, while I in God We Trust sits to the left of Washington's neck. The P mint mark is tucked neatly beside the ribbon in Washington's hair, marking the coin as a Philadelphia product. Collectors often study the strike quality of Philadelphia quarters closely because differences in production conditions can influence the sharpness of the final coin. Some examples show softer details in Washington's hair or weaker definition in the lettering. Others display remarkably crisp strikes with brilliant luster. Turning to the reverse, the same iconic eagle design dominates the center of the coin. The eagle's wings stretch outward in a display of strength, while the arrows and olive branches symbolize both military readiness and a commitment to peace. Surrounding the design are the inscriptions United States of America and quarter dollar, with the motto E Pluribus Unum appearing above the eagle. In 1996, the Philadelphia Mint produced an enormous quantity of Washington quarters. The total mintage reached approximately 925,040,000 coins. This staggering number ensured that the 1996 P quarter would become a common sight in cash registers, vending machines, and pockets across the country. Because of that large mintage, circulated examples of the 1996 P quarter remain extremely common today. Most show signs of wear from years of handling, including smoothing on Washington's hair and light abrasions across the fields of the coin. These pieces typically hold no premium above their face value. However, the situation changes dramatically when collectors begin searching for high-grade examples. Coins that were set aside immediately after minting, never entering circulation, can still retain their original mint luster and sharp design details. Mint state examples graded MS-65 often sell for several dollars, but the value climbs quickly as the grade improves. Coins graded MS-67 or higher become much more difficult to locate, and collectors seeking perfect or near-perfect examples often compete aggressively for them. At the uppermost levels of preservation, an MS-68 example of the 1996 P. Washington quarter is considered exceptionally rare. These coins display flawless surfaces, full luster, and crisp design elements with virtually no visible imperfections. When such a coin appears at auction, it can command prices ranging from several $100s to well over $1,000 depending on collector demand. Mint errors also add excitement to the 1996 P quarter. Off-center strikes are among the most visually dramatic errors collectors encounter. In these cases, the coin blank shifts during striking, leaving part of the design missing while exposing a blank crescent of metal. When the date remains visible and the misalignment is dramatic, these coins can sell for impressive premiums. Another fascinating error is the double die variety. This occurs when the coin's die receives a misaligned impression during its creation, resulting in doubled features on the coins it strikes. While major double die varieties for the 1996 P quarter are not widely known, collectors continue to examine coins carefully in hopes of discovering new varieties. Clipped planchet errors also appear occasionally. In these cases, a portion of the metal blank is missing before the coin is struck, creating a curved or straight indentation along the edge of the coin. These unusual shapes attract collector interest and often sell for far more than ordinary examples. Die cracks, cuds, and other die-related anomalies are also part of the landscape for 1996 P quarters. These imperfections occur as the minting dies experience stress and wear over time. Although minor die cracks may only add modest value, Larger and more dramatic breaks can create collectible varieties. Another aspect that draws collectors to the 1996 P. Washington quarter is its role in the transition period just before the state quarters era. In 1999, the United States Mint launched a groundbreaking program featuring unique reverse designs for each of the 50 states. That program reinvigorated coin collecting across the country and introduced millions of new collectors to the hobby. Because of this historical shift, the 1996 P quarter represents part of the final chapter of the traditional Washington quarter design that had dominated American coinage for decades. Collectors assembling complete series often view these late 1990s coins as important pieces of that long narrative. Original 1996 mint sets produced by the United States Mint also play an important role in the collector market. These sets included uncirculated coins from both Philadelphia and Denver, preserved in protective packaging. Many collectors today search through these sets hoping to find pristine examples suitable for high-grade submissions to professional grading services. The excitement of discovering a near-perfect coin from such sets keeps the hunt alive even decades after the coins were originally issued. Each pristine example represents a small time capsule from 1996, preserved exactly as it left the mint. For most people, the 1996 P. Washington quarter will always remain a simple piece of pocket change. But to collectors and numismatists, it represents something far more fascinating. A mass-produced coin that still holds the potential for rarity, value, and discovery. And that is the magic of coin collecting. Even a humble quarter can carry layers of history, craftsmanship, and hidden potential waiting to be uncovered by those willing to look a little closer. The 1966 Washington quarter-dollar coin. By 1966, the United States Mint was still dealing with the aftermath of the coin shortage and the sweeping changes introduced the previous year. The transition to clad coinage was now fully underway, and the new copper-nickel Washington quarters were flowing steadily into circulation. Just like the previous year, mint marks remained absent from all coins produced in 1966. This policy continued as part of the government's attempt to discourage coin collecting and hoarding, which officials believe contributed to the shortage. Despite the absence of mint marks, production remained incredibly high. More than 821 million Washington quarters dated 1966 were struck. These coins were produced across multiple facilities, but all appear identical without mint identifiers. The design remained unchanged from earlier Washington quarters. On the obverse, John Flanagan portrait of George Washington dominates the coin. The sculpted details of Washington's profile, including the subtle curve of his jawline and the tied hair ribbon at the back of his head, reflect the classical style that has made the design one of the most recognizable in American coinage. Liberty stretches above Washington's head, while I in God we trust appears to the left of his neck. The date 1966 sits neatly below the portrait. The reverse continues to feature the majestic bald eagle perched on arrows, with olive branches beneath. The eagle's wings extend nearly to the rim of the coin, creating a sense of strength and motion. The inscriptions United States of America and quarter dollars surround the design, with E pluribus unum positioned above the eagle. Because the composition remained copper-nickel clad, the coin retained the same weight and metallic structure introduced in 1965. Most 1966 quarters circulated heavily, and today they are extremely common in worn condition. For everyday collectors, these coins are typically worth face value unless they appear in uncirculated or near-perfect states. But as with many mass-produced coins, certain errors and exceptional examples have elevated the 1966 Washington quarter into the realm of valuable collectibles. One intriguing variety involves doubled dies similar to those seen in 1965 coins. On some 1966 quarters, collectors have detected doubling in the lettering and date, particularly around Liberty. These doubled features are subtle but noticeable under magnification, making them an exciting discovery for dedicated numismatists. Another category includes off-center strikes, where the coin blank was not perfectly aligned when struck by the dies. This causes part of the design to be missing while the remaining portion appears shifted to one side. The degree of off-center error determines the value. Minor off-center strikes may sell for modest premiums, but dramatic examples missing large portions of the design can bring hundreds of dollars. Clip planchet errors are also known for 1966 quarters. These occur when the metal strip used to create coin blanks overlaps improperly during punching, leaving a curved clip missing from the edge of the coin. While visually unusual, these errors are highly collectible and can command significant prices depending on their size and location. High-grade examples again represent the most valuable category for collectors. Because many coins were produced quickly and entered circulation immediately, pristine pieces are surprisingly scarce. Coins graded MS67 or higher can sell for several $100s or more, particularly if they display strong luster and sharp details. Collectors also appreciate the 1966 Washington quarter as part of a historical sequence. These coins represent the second year of the clad coinage experiment and illustrate how quickly the U.S. Mint adapted to new materials and large-scale production demands. For many numismatists, assembling a high-grade set of Washington quarters from the transitional years of 1965 through 1967 is both a challenge and a rewarding pursuit. The 1967 Washington quarter-dollar coin. The year 1967 marked the final chapter of the mint mark suspension era. Like its immediate predecessors, the 1967 Washington quarter was produced without any mint mark, even though multiple mint facilities were involved in production. By this time, the new clad coinage system had stabilized, and the worst of the coin shortage was beginning to ease. Still, the mint continued producing enormous numbers of quarters to ensure that coins remained readily available for everyday transactions. In total, more than 1.5 billion Washington quarters dated 1967 were struck. This staggering production number ensured that the coin became one of the most common quarters of the decade. The design remained unchanged, preserving John Flanagan's classic depiction of George Washington. The portrait carries the same dignified presence seen on earlier issues, while the reverse eagle continues to symbolize American strength and unity. Even though the design was familiar, collectors have discovered that certain 1967 quarters hold surprising value due to errors, exceptional condition, or unusual striking characteristics. One fascinating category includes coins struck on incorrect planchets. Occasionally, a coin blank intended for another denomination accidentally enters the quarter press. When struck with quarter dies, the result is a dramatically different coin with unusual size, weight, or color. Examples of 1967 quarters struck on dime planchets or foreign coin blanks have been reported, and such pieces can command thousands of dollars depending on rarity and condition. Another desirable error involves dramatic die cracks or cuts. These occur when a die begins to break or chip during use, leaving raised lines or blobs of metal on the finished coin. Large cut errors, where a portion of the die breaks away entirely, can create striking visual effects that collectors find extremely appealing. As with previous years, double dies also exist among 1967 quarters. These can appear in the lettering or date and may add considerable value when clearly visible. Condition once again plays a major role in determining the coin's worth. Because billions were produced, only the finest surviving examples attract strong premiums. Coins graded MS67 or higher are particularly prized and can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on eye appeal. The 1967 Washington quarter also carries historical significance as the final year before mint marks returned to U.S. coinage. In 1968, the mint resumed placing mint marks on coins, ending the 3-year experiment that attempted to curb collecting activity. For numismatists, the trio of 1965, 1966, and 1967 Washington quarters represents a fascinating era when economic pressures forced dramatic changes in American money. These coins mark the end of circulating silver coinage and the birth of the modern clad system that continues today. And while billions of these quarters passed through the hands of ordinary Americans, a few rare examples, hidden among everyday change, have become prized treasures worth far more than 25 cents.